from the Corsair Cup, courtesy of Base Trade TV's replay pack, which means it'll probably be on the Game Heart overlay as well. But let me get this. We have in the bottom right, I believe he's from Europe, from Team Prophecy. You probably haven't heard of him. You probably haven't heard of it. It's Geralt. I've heard of him. I haven't played him. I haven't seen him much. But he's one of those players that's right there, ready to have his breakout, like tournament, open bracket, whatever. But he hasn't made it really yet. And in the top left, it is, if you donate, you see it today, it is formerly of Team MVP. From Korea. It is the Terran. It is Keen. With some of the most fun celebrations in the history of StarCraft. Former GSL player. I mean, he's in and out of it, but this is for the Corsair Cup. And we're going to talk about PvT. Protoss versus Terran is kind of in an interesting place right now, because there are two kind of distinct styles on either side. One, for Terran, there is the early pressure play. Like, you proxy a factory for Cyclones, maybe you have a proxy starport for a Liberator, you try to find a way to put pressure on the Protoss very early before they're even ready for it. And then usually a transition into bio play. Some players will be going for quick range Liberators, some really rely on the Marine medevac, stuff like that. Now for Protoss, there's also a dichotomy in the sense that there are two styles of ways to either deal with early pressure and or transition into the later game. Now we have a gate expand and a 1-Rax expand, so the bread and butter, the macro plays on either side. But when it comes to Protoss, you have your Stargate Adept, Oracle first into Phoenix Adept style, which can be used as a very powerful knockout of Terran before they're even ready for it. Just a huge swell of Adepts. Phoenixes pick up Widow Mines, they take out Medevacs. Liberators aren't a threat. But that can be vulnerable as time goes on and a Terran player builds up the complexity of their army. They add range Liberators, they have upgrades on their Marines and Marauders. The second option is the more standard, well, by standard I mean in the history of StarCraft, Colossus Robo style, where you have the Observers to deal with Widowmine drops, you have Robo units just to hold your bases early, and you build up to a Death Ball and eventually transition into Templar. So it does appear Keen is opting, or Geralt rather. Geralt is the Protoss. He's right there. The name's on the screen. It's pretty hard to miss. But Geralt is going for the Stargate. He's already set up his buildings in a way that can kind of even block out the Reaper as well. He went for the Stargate so quick he can't get a Mothership Core. This is a Stargate that forces a certain response. He knows Keen has seen it. When you don't make a Mothership Core, you just assume the Reaper's going to get the information. The speed of the Stargate is the advantage, is what he's relying on. And now something else to note. He's chrono boosting out a third Adept. The intent of this is to shade into the front and dive on the Marines or any other units he can get a hold of with 3 Adepts and an Oracle. It's if you don't have a turret or a Widowmine hit, it's actually very difficult to hold on to that. You're going to need turrets, you're going to need a Widowmine hit. Marines themselves do not stand up to this. So this is an early pressure coming out of Geralt. It's looking to do some damage, and while he might not be able to kill SCVs with the Oracle, he can kill the Marines, and then the Adepts will do the rest of the work. A lot of times as well. Now, it's actually important to note that he's going for a second gateway. He got into the main. He saw another barracks on the way. Is he? Is he going for the shade forward? Because there are still Adepts on the other side. It looks like it's not going to be the 3 Adept shade on top of the Marines, but unfortunately for Keen, he doesn't actually have any Marines here. They've been juked and jived all the way around by this Adept. But that means he has an idea that there's no Widowmine here. And if there's no Widowmine, the Oracle comes in, actually gets some damage done. The Widowmine is at the natural. It's tucked in between the minerals. He's trying to find a way to get a hit there. The Viking comes out to deflect this. Oh, is he going to get too greedy? There's the mine. It is juked out. Good micro out of Geralt. He keeps the Oracle alive. But he's not stopping there. He's not going for a quick third. A lot of the time when you see the Stargate, that's used to get map control, because if you're defending a Stargate, you kind of have to stay at home for a while and get a third base up. That's not what Geralt is doing. He's got 2 gates, 3 gates now in the main. He's got a gate at the front, and he's just warping in gateway units in general. They, unfortunately for him, this will be scouted out somewhat by the Reaper. Most importantly, the third base is scouted. And the lack of a third base gives a lot away here, and that's why Keen, he's got a bunker on the way. The engineering bay is at the front. The tank is sieged up. He's locking it down because he knows right now if there's no third base, there's units on the way. What kind of units, where they're coming from, he doesn't have that information, but he knows units are on the way. This is why we got sacrificial Marines all over the sides, looking for the rocks, looking for the left side, and this one is going to find the attack. Oh, he'll even try to move away in time. He's not breaking this. There's 2 siege tanks. There's Marines. He's not breaking this. I think Geralt already starting to realize that as soon as it was scouted. And he's taking his third. More gates are on the way. Charge as well. Nope. Now, key. Critical to note. No forge for upgrades. So Geralt is still... He's kind of transitioning into a later all-in. At some point, there's going to be Marines with combat shield, stim, and medevacs. And with upgrades. Once they start to get 2 upgrades on you, it becomes incredibly difficult to fight against them. You have to take a good engagement on your terms, and the time for that is starting to run out here. If he doesn't get a catch with these units in the middle on medevacs, if he doesn't get some forges here soon, well, there we go. A Templar Archives and a forge on the way. But Geralt, his attack was stopped essentially before it started. Now at the same time, Keen doesn't have a third base. So just because Geralt was going for that doesn't mean he's behind necessarily now. He can actually catch up a little in the upgrades, but Keen's going to reach this critical mass of units. It's not going to be long from now. He's got combat shields coming up. He's got medevacs done. He's got 1-1 in the mail, concussive shells, all the fixins here. The stasis ward will be given away. And 3 tanks. 3 tanks. If you have enough Marines in front, there's a lot of production. This is just charge lots. He can't... Well, can he afford Storm? He has the gas, but he doesn't really have the minerals. But this is just charge lots here. There's some Stalkers in the middle. They do not have the blink. Smartly drawing out a stasis ward. A Revelation will keep track of this army. Will Keen go right up the center, or will he go for the third? He's continuing this. There's no third on the way. There's no armory. Keen is now becoming the player who needs to do damage. Geralt has successfully forced him, well, not really forced him necessarily, but he's put him in this position where there's no follow-up here. There's this attack, and that is it. The Archon flank from the side. He's on top of the tanks. Keen biting off more than he could chew. A Widowmine hit will come out. Hit a single Zealot, splash over a few more, but that's not enough. The sheer power, the brute force of the Protoss army is going to force him back, and it's going to force Keen into a third base on the low ground. Both sides. This is a series of both sides doing a 2-base attack, realizing it's not going to happen, and just pulling back and trying to macro it out. Geralt is coming out on top of this so far. He's got the third base. He's looking at 68 probes to 51 SCVs. He's getting his upgrades. He's catching up. He's got Archon still. Charge is done. And even some, well, the Zealots here will delay the command center, but he kind of threw them away. Only a handful of units will die. And actually at the same time, a Liberator sieges up with approximately 0 fucks given, and will kill 8 probes. At the same time, another Liberator sieging up from the side, this one in a better position to not die, but also not in a great position to get the kills. Just out of overcharge range. You know he calculated that. That's not luck. And that will be a sizable blow to Geralt's economy. At 62 to 52, this is going to even out as soon as a couple mules. That's right. That's how you say it? Something like that. There's a single Phoenix. Remember, he did have a Stargate. He's remembering now, too. A Storm and Blink are on the way. No +2 for Geralt here, but Keen has started his. He's finished the armor, and he's pumping out Liberators. Stalkers. Now, there's still the Gateway Pylon out here, and this can be very helpful for a multi-pronged attack. The way to kill a Terran, even on Abyssal Reef where it's very difficult, you have to hit them from a couple sides. If you try to go up a ramp into Liberators and their entire army, they can spread out and they can just gun you down as you try to get up a ramp or through a certain location. But if a Warp Prism comes into the main, 10 charge lots into the left side, then you start to open up some defenses. It'll show some cracks. But we're going to have to find out. The Robo, the 10-minute Robo, is now in production. +2 attack as well. We'll have to see. Keen has a sizable bio army. He has an increasing Liberator count. He's going up to 4 now. That's not... He doesn't have a Fusion Core for range, but he does have a Ghost Academy for EMP. Ghosts themselves are not bad fighting units against charge lots, but it's all about the EMP. He needs to remove Storm from the equation. He'll worry about Colossi later. Alright. And so will Geralt in this case. Ooh, a nice tag here. The Revelation gives Geralt vision of a lot. The most important parts of this army. The charge lot, warp in. These zealots are very dead. That's not going to happen. He realizes the threat does Keen. He's already almost built a wall. He has plenty of Liberators sieged up. All he has to do is make sure he doesn't get caught off guard by the main army. Keen is now starting to build a very strong later game army. +2/+2 at a quicker timing against +2/+1. He's got ghosts on the way. More Liberators. Once you start get to 6, 8, there is a Stargate, but there's no Tempests. There's not really any Phoenixes or Void Rays. Once you start getting close to double-digit Liberators, it gets very scary for a Protoss, even if they have Blink Stalkers. More charge lots coming in. Zealots are getting on top of things, but they will be taken out. Geralt does have money to spare. Okay, he's actually going to go for a Disruptor. He doesn't feel like he has time to get extended Thermal Lance Colossi right now. That's the summary. He has 1 Robo. A Disruptor hit can change everything. 1 Colossi? Probably not. Alright. Now this positioning could be very, very good for Keen. I don't think there's no observers out here. He just built a Robo. There was no Revelation. He moved out right after it was moved away. And that means Keen has gone completely unchecked onto this right side, right near the 3rd base. And the own buildings are going to be part of the issue here. The EMPs come out, some feedback, some storms. He's trying to get underneath the Liberators. Unfortunately, that's not the place to be with these Archons. He's going to work his way through. The Widowmines will connect. 2-2 is finished for Keen. But 2-1 is done for Geralt. He's coming back with all his reinforcements, but most of his storms have been exhausted. His own gateway is forming a choke point. The Widowmine connects. I'm not even sure what that hit. But is there enough here from Geralt? He needs another warp and he needs more units. He needs better upgrades, but he just doesn't have it. Alright, another Widowmine hit. If he can pick off these medevacs and all the units, he might be looking okay. But Keen was able to evade this army for so long. It's become very difficult. Another medevac, a parting shot. But the Widowmines remain burrowed. A Liberator managed to get 7 probe kills during this. Geralt deflects it. But Keen is almost everywhere at once. A single Disruptor shot will hit a Widowmine, but there's 2 more where that came from. The pylon on the left side will be found out. Geralt is losing probes. He's down to 69 versus 6. That's actually fine. The thing is, he lost so many Templar. Right now, Keen has a 4th. He's building up ranged Liberators. He might want a few more medevacs. I think he agrees. But that was a successful fight there. That was a good fight. A little bit of blink dodge. And what is there? There's no Colossi. There's no Tempests. There's barely any Templar. They were just warped in. The brute force method does not work anymore. Keen is picking it apart. He maneuvered around. He found the right angle. And unfortunately for Geralt, he was not acutely aware of it. And that means Keen was able to take a winning fight. And Geralt, with this army that really isn't good at going head-to-head, he needs to be bullying Keen back. He needs to keep it on his side of the map. It's hard to keep someone on their side of the map when you're down 30 supply. Yeah, another Liberator going to be driven away as Geralt is starting to dry up on the minerals. Keen, of course, he can lift his bases, which he will probably do soon. I mean, Disruptors and Blinkstalkers have done magical things in the past, but Terran players have become so good at dodging those Disruptor hits. And the Bile's on the way, +3's on the way. 3-2. Is there any extended Thermal Lance? There's no Thermal Lance for these Colossi, and that could hurt. If he's actually planning to have serious fights with them. You need that extra 2 range. Alright. Once again, Keen moving on to this side. He knows how good these Liberators are. He's looking at, well, 6 so far. They do have range. Disruptor. A split second away from doing the real damage. But these are ranged Liberators. They can zone everything within sight, essentially. A couple Disruptor hits come out. Keen, not quite retreating in time. Good hits. But this is, his back is up against his own wall right now. Geralt. This is an angle. This is... Keen is in the driver's seat. Right now, Geralt has to somehow get control back. The reinforcements are coming into the reinforcements of Geralt and will be cut off. He's just given this up, this base. A feedback storm combination. We'll be able to take out the drop, but there's more where that came from. Keen still has plenty of economy. So does Geralt. But it's getting dicier and dicier as one of his fresh mining bases is denied. Alright, more warping in. Another Disruptor hit from downtown, but there's nothing. It can barely go the range of these Liberators. It's so far away. Another shot. Whiffed. And another air ball. It's Shaq at the free throw line again. He has 1 or 2 more Disruptor hits. He has some storms, but Geralt is starting to bleed units. Even Vikings on the way for Keen. For the Colossi that he has seen. And also potentially for Tempest. Ooh, those Templar are in a dangerous... They are in the freest place in the Freedom Zones, but the EMP and the Liberator shots, the Concord cannons, drive the point home. But he's able to slip a Disruptor through. It will be forced back. The storms will connect on a single Liberator. More storms at the front, but not enough to drive this army back. He'll stim, and it looks like he will be winning this. Not the game, but the fight, at least for now. Geralt continuing to expand away from this ranged Liberator assault. But we're looking at 12 Liberators. An entire dozen. So much freedom. Well, the Disruptors will zone out. He'll be able to shave off a couple. There is no Thermal Lance on these Colossi. He doesn't have the range. Warping in more Templar. Geralt, he's on his last legs here. This is starting to become too strong of an attack, and it just keeps pushing through. He can lose this base. He has the one on the left. He's still struggling, but he doesn't have the counter to the Liberators. He can get lucky. Oh, those ghosts somehow dodging death. Is he going to go into the Venn diagram of freedom? Will he find himself coming out on top? Justice reigns from above, but the Stalkers below will throw it right back at him and remove Keen from this position. But we do have to ask, at what cost? Geralt will hold on to 144 supply. He has another warp in ready. What will he choose? He has the resources. 2 Disruptors are continuing to be built. He hasn't built any other Stargate units. 9 more Zealots are the choice. They're warped in on the left side. Is this for a counterattack or part of the army is the question. Maybe just to keep this base alive. Alright, Geralt is pushing forward. Big Disruptor. Able to connect. And another one. That one does not quite get the connection. Colossi barely standing. Keen now on the back foot. Thrown to his bases. This is a floated main command center, and this is his second base. These are now planetary fortresses. He can't just retreat to them. He lost his Liberators. He lost his siege potential. There's a lot of splash damage here, and he doesn't have any ghosts. And he doesn't really have anything to zone out the Ruptors. Another few units go down. So does the Colossus. Another Disruptor hit. Only hits SCVs, but he doesn't have that many to work with right now. His base has landed. He's still producing SCVs and Liberators. Gets a full scan on the army. More Disruptors coming around and taking out some Marauders from the back. He's going to find himself going up to the high ground. Medevacs being cut off before they can even join up with the army. Another Ruptor hit. A single very unlucky SCV. We have more Liberators on the way. I don't know where the rest are. There's a few starports. Getting up this ramp is difficult, but not for Purification Novas. Down to 140 supply. There's a planetary fortress and a command center at the front. He's forced to lift everything. Geralt is back to full mining on all of his bases with 74 probes. He can reinforce. He needs a victory, and he needs it quickly, but these Disruptors are keeping him so far away. And we don't mind trying to connect here. It will. Not on much. +3 armor might be denied. Is Keen opting for a base trade? Is this the play? He's decided he can no longer try to fight this army heads up. It's a Hail Mary. Shots directly into the Ghost, into the bio. The planetary will be repaired, but they're caught out in the storm. The infrastructure will crumble. The Stalker's on top of everything, and Geralt is ripping through Keen's defenses at triple drop, desperately trying to come into action. But by the time it gets anywhere close to Geralt's base, it seems like it's going to be too late. He's going for the straight middle. Disruptor shot comes out, doesn't quite connect. There are a lot of Stalkers here. But this is desperation out of Keen. There's nothing left at home. Geralt has plenty of time to rebuild any forces he needs to defend. Zealots, Templar, Stalkers on the side. He can bring back his main army as the command centers burn. Keen can micro, but now even Tempests are on the field. And Geralt will take the victory on Abyssal Reef. That was a pretty good game. I just picked a random game. I'm not unhappy with that.